What's up, guys? What's going on? How's everybody doing today? We have an exciting episode for you guys. And, I kind of want to come up with like a name for this actual podcast. Like I was sitting there thinking about it before we came on today. And I was sitting there, I was like, dude, we need to think of a name because this is completely analytics based, right? This is something as to where we are operating off of the numbers, solely off the numbers. It's not really opinionated. It is a numbers based podcast. So I was thinking with us being fantasy intervention, maybe by the ounces or ounce by ounce, yard by yard. I don't know. I was just thinking of different things. Yeah, different things that we could come up with just to give this episode kind of like a little bit of a name. Now, we don't need a name. I mean, this is fantasy intervention, right? Like this is what we do. We crunch numbers, but I just thought it'd be kind of fun. So anyways, guys, if y'all have any advice for a fantasy intervention name for this show itself, obviously we're numbers based. It's analytics. Give us a shout out. Ounces to ounces or something like that was, somewhere that I was going with that. But yeah, I've got two co-hosts with me today to crush these numbers that we're about to bring up. I've got Dave over there. What's going on, Dave? How you doing?
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me again. Looking forward to this weekly show we're doing now.
Oh, dude, this is too much fun. And after I saw the show sheet, I pretty much had to go masturbate. I told you guys that. I probably shouldn't be telling everybody that I masturbate to analytics show sheets, but Mike already pointed out the fact that I masturbate to PFF, so it is what it is. Have to clean off my stove just to go masturbate to PFF. It happens, man. It happens. Big shout out to Brad out there for getting me PFF. So, Mike goes, my kids heard that. Oh, man. I hope Teddy B goes off too tonight. By the way, Tyler, big shout out to you. So, we have Dave over there. Dave, where can we find you, man? What do you do? Who are you?
You can find me on Fantasy Pros, where I'm doing news correspondence for them. You could also find me at the Pregame HQ. And most importantly, you could find me at Join Our Circle _
underscore. Damn knitters.
Don't forget the underscore.
God, because then you're just going to go to a knitting site that hasn't been active since 2014. All right, Juan, what's going on, man? How you doing, Juan?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Any day we get to talk about fantasy football makes me happy, and crunching these numbers, man, whatever floats your boat, Chase, and I'm not quite that happy about it, but I do enjoy myself crunching these numbers. I stay up all night and do it, and it's a pleasure to do, and I'm glad we get to do it. And among this company, it's really exciting, man. You can find me at thetiltisreal.com and definitely at joinourcircle_, where we're putting up great work and everybody there. Brad Bolt, you shouted him out. Congratulations on the birth of your daughter, dude. Like, part of the team. That's the first baby on the team. And it's pretty cool to be a part of this whole Join Our Circle _
Join Our Circle _
It's the best, dude.
Big things are happening, man. Like, we're sitting there and we're expanding. We're blowing up. We're getting clothing made by Viridian. I'm stoked about that. Yeah. So we got so many things going on. You're over there buying a house. Brad's having a kid. I'm getting PFF. Dude, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. I love it. We got crazy stuff going on. All right. So I'm sure people are sitting there and probably, over listening to me talk about masturbating in PFF. So I do want to go ahead and dive into this episode. And a guy that we talked about heavy last week, right? Heavy. I was sitting there marching him out all over the place. I didn't think J.D. McKissic was going to have as big as an effect because, of course, J.D. McKissic is a pass-catching back. Meanwhile, Dallas is really good up against pass-catching backs. So it gave Antonio Gibson over there an opportunity to actually have a breakout game. Guess what? That's what he did up against the Cowboys. He turned out a season high in touches and yards, 128 rushing yards on 20 carries and a touchdown. It was so sexy. Absolutely loved it. Listen, Washington's on a bye this week, so there's really not much to bring him up wise. But I do want to bring up his current trade value, right? Let's say in half-point PPR, just to make it easy for guys that are non-PPR and in PPR, he's currently RB17. Is his trajectory going forward going to be going up? Is it going to skyrocket, or is it going to end up taking a plummet? Like, what are we looking at here, fellas?
Well, I think that anybody that's seen this kid play just knows that the talent is unquestionable with Gibson. He ran a 4.39 at the combine. That got a lot of attention. And so far, it's translated into a pretty solid pro game. Right now, he's 8th in evaded tackles per touch, and he's 10th in yards created per touch. So, Washington obviously has these negative game scripts that you'd think would work against him, but Gibson actually averaged 11 carries and 4 targets during their 5-game losing streak. So even when it's bad game script, he's still finding a way to produce. You can make the case that it's time to sell high on Gibson. but he's just so much better than J.D. McKissic, and he can carve out a like a James Robinson-esque role on that team. Washington isn't getting in scoring position much, but when they do, they turn to Gibson. He's seeing 0.7 goal line carries per game, which is currently 10th in the league. So he's in this frustrating timeshare, but like you mentioned, he's still the RB17. So I think his role only grows from here, and his week 15 matchups, or weeks 15 and 16 matchups against Seattle and Carolina, make him a pretty enticing trade target. And I'd be going for him if I can.
Now, it's interesting because I love Antonio Gibson. I think even in redraft dynasty, it doesn't matter what it is. I think he is on the way up, up, up. I love me some Antonio Gibson. What are you saying, Juan?
Yeah, we all have to love him. I mean, the arrow only points in that direction. It's straight up, you know what I mean? And he had that great game against the Cowboys that you mentioned, and he finally went off. But he would have had even more had the game been a little bit closer. You saw Peyton Barber eat into that with 10 carries, but he only managed 34 yards. So we're going to couple Gibson's speed, that 4.39 speed that Dave mentioned, with 6'2", 225. That's not an everyday running back right about now. So we can't help to be excited about his potential going forward. And Scott Turner's offense is evolving, is starting to click. And coming out of the bye week, his role is even going to be more expanded, and his usage, he's going to go up against the Giants, the Lions, and the Cowboys in 3 of the next 4 weeks. The Giants are 22nd against the running back, allowing 25.5 fantasy points. The Lions are 27th and allow 29.4, and you just saw what he did to the Cowboys. So in the next little stretch right here, trading for him might be difficult, but if you have the roster construction, grab Gibson now while you can and watch him outperform that RB17 that you mentioned at the top, and he should finish as a low-end RB1.
I'll take that. I honestly believe that he has that upside where he could be that RB1. And going forward in Dynasty, he's going to be a top 4, maybe top 5, or I should say top 5, maybe top 4 running back, moving forward. So I love him. Absolutely love him. So that's where we're valuing Gibson so far during his bye week. But we got to talk about running backs that are coming off of a bye, right? Because we have Dalvin Cook over there who's back at practice. And honestly, he should play this week. The Vikings were on a bye last week, like we brought up, but Alexander Madison was ended up dropped in a lot of leagues out there. He's only owned in 58% of ESPN leagues right now, mainly because he had the face plant up against the Falcons in week 6. But either way, does he have value? I got to ask, because even when Cook's healthy, he still ends up getting a few touches here and there. Green Bay is awful up against the run defense. Or I should say has an awful run defense. So is Madison worthy of a flex spot even with Cook healthy? Do you guys think that they work him back in? What are you guys thinking?
So I'm thinking that this offense in general kind of scares me a little bit. This game feels like one of those trap games because the Packers are really bad against the run, but you already have a little bit of history here. Now, Cousins has multiple interceptions in 3 of his last 6 games, including 3 picks in 2 of those games. So the Packers are starting to roll on offense, and if they can turn Cousins over, the game script could be something a little similar to the week 1 matchup. So this is one of the first games where we have actual history, where we can go back to a matchup that we've seen before. And in that game, Dalvin Cook only had 50 yards on 12 carries, but he was used near the goal line and he scored 2 touchdowns, which is the great thing about the difference between Cook and Madison is being able to get those short yards. So since then, Green Bay's defense has been the running backs version of the historically bad Seattle defense against wideouts. The Packers are allowing 33 points a game to the running back position. They allow a catch percentage of 89.7 to running backs, which bodes well for Cook, who's the team's leading pass catcher, but neither one of these guys is getting the heavy involvement in the pass game. 12 catches on 16 targets for 64 yards for Cook, and Madison only has 9 catches on the season on 11 targets for 61 yards. So with that kind of a low involvement in the passing game, I would temper my expectations not only for this game, but Madison probably isn't anything more than a handcuff at this point. And even though we hoped and we wanted him to do that, and a lot of people predicted it, I just don't see it for Madison.
Yeah,
I'm not huge on Madison either, Dave. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree. He's somebody that you want as a handcuff, and it's kind of frustrating because you had to spend, pretty high draft capital to get him, and you can't play him every single week. But, he was ranked top 3 by most experts heading into week 6, and he was just terrible. He had a season low 2.6 yards per carry. He got stuffed at the goal line a few times, and I could understand why you might be enticed to play him in this matchup, especially with Cook coming off an injury and the Green Bay's defense, but I just wouldn't do it. Madison is most effective when he's only getting a handful of touches and he's got fresh legs. His floor when Cook is healthy this year is 19% of his team snaps, but his ceiling is only 37%, and that was in week 1, and then they started going down from there. So that type of usage really makes him a touchdown or bust type guy. And Dalvin Cook is averaging 3.4 carries in the red zone and 0.8 goal line touches per game. Madison isn't getting any when Cook is healthy. So he's been kind of efficient with what we've seen, but he just hasn't really had the opportunity. So unless you're in like a 14, 16 team league, he's just the definition of getting too cute. And I think you got to keep him on your bench.
Yeah, he's not a guy that I'm going to be starting. I just wanted to pose that question because I have been getting a few of those so far. So I wanted to just bring it up. Another guy, though, that could have a little bit more relevance, I should say. A guy from the NFC North who got backup duties last week once again. We got Jamal Williams, right, who will face the Vikings on Sunday. Dude, he just went off this past week, right? 114 total yards and a touchdown. It looks like Aaron Jones might play this week, but they're going to hold Aaron Jones out if they have any kind of concern. So if he plays this week, let's just hypothetically say that he does. Are you starting Wilson as well? Like, do you think that Wilson is a safe start? Is he going to be, rushing enough in this game to support, 4 running backs, of course? Like, it's something as to where, like, I have a weird feeling about it. And I think that Williams could still go off because I feel like they could keep Aaron Jones on a snap count. We've watched LaFleur in the past actually take Aaron Jones out of the game because he wanted to keep him on a lighter workload. And there was no reason to. He was crushing it in the game.
Yeah, I think Juan hit it on the head. I mean, this just feels like a trap game. You've got 2 teams that are just terrible at stop run, and then you've got these.
Oh, did he freeze for you, Juan?
Yeah, he did. I thought it was me.
Nope, I thought it was me too. Yo, go ahead and.
I thought it was me.
Go ahead and take this one.
Packers.
Oh, he's back.
Did we cut out for a second there?
Yeah, you cut out. Go ahead and start over again.
All right. It's fine. So, what I was getting at, the Vikings, they're 1-5, but I think they're going to put up a pretty tough match. I think, Juan kind of alluded to it already, that this just feels like a trap game. 2 terrible run defenses, but I just don't see the backups really getting much of an effort in here. After a week off, the Packers are probably going to lean on Jones the same way that they have all year, even if he's not 100% healthy. And Williams has been getting plenty of opportunity. He's seen 31% of team snaps as a minimum in every game. But Aaron Jones has obviously been much more effective. He's averaging 5.2 yards per carry. Williams is averaging 4.2. Aaron Jones has seen 28 targets and Williams has seen 19. And when the touches count near the end zone, Jones has seen 5 or 7 receptions in games that they played together, and Williams hasn't seen a single one. So Williams is talented, but the coaching staff just puts the ball in Jones's hand when the touches count and when they're both healthy. So I'm staying away from Williams in this one. Obviously, though, if Aaron Jones is unable to suit up, Williams is another smash play.
I do got to give a shout out to Nick real quick. Thanks for loving the show, man. We are going to cover Mixon a little bit later in this episode, so we'll address it when we get there. But yeah, back to Juan. What are you thinking with Williams?
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing as Dave. Like, it's hesitant. It all depends on whether or not Jones is going to play, because even if he does, you can't really trust the usage because of what you said about LaFleur as well. So that's something to keep an eye on. So even if they let him and his snap share is limited, the Vikings allow 24.4 points per game to the fantasy running back. Okay, so but they also allow 47.4 to the wide receiver. Now, that's 3rd most in the league. So you can expect to see another blow-up game for Davante Adams after his 13-catch, 196-yard, and 2-touchdown performance last week. And you're thinking, like, maybe that's a bit of an outlier, but he did the same thing in week 1. He had 14 catches on 17 targets for 156 and 2 touchdowns against that same Vikings team. So the Packers had a 29-10 lead in that game through 3 quarters, and then a late surge made the game close. So in that game, Jones had 20 total touches for 76 yards and a touchdown. So that feels like a ceiling kind of game for Jones, especially with the injury right now. And he outsnapped Williams in that game 54% to 39%. So that's a little too close for comfort to rely on either one. If Jones is in, I'm tempering expectations. If it's Williams, like Dave said, then I got to smash play him because of where I got him and where I can use him in my flex. Okay,
I'll take it. And to your Davante Adams reference, right? You don't think that the Minnesota Vikings are just sitting there prepping their asses off, getting ready for Davante Adams? Meanwhile, it could be like MVS maybe that goes off in the background, maybe a Tanyan game.
I feel like everybody tries to stop Adams, and nobody's been able to do it yet. So, I mean, he's one of those guys that you can't really game plan for. I mean, he's going to get open. Aaron Rodgers is going to hit him in stride, and he's going to have a big week.
Yeah, Tanyan scares me off a little bit because of Kendricks and Harrison Smith and whether or not they're going to be able to cover him and take him away a little bit. But, yeah, the MVS or Lazard, if he's healthy, outlier kind of situation, Russell Shepard, yeah, that could be a play if they decide to actually take away Davante Adams. But I don't know if they can stop him.
Well, the Packers, right? They were able to bounce back with a big win last week up against Houston, after Tampa Bay just completely demolished them, right, in week 6. It was embarrassing, to be honest with you. But David Johnson also had a quiet but solid outing against him, which, I kind of thought that they would to an extent. He saw double-digit carries for the 7th straight game, which is absolutely nuts. He got a season-high 4 receptions on top of that and caught his first passing touchdown, which I thought would be more of a thing, to be honest with you guys, in 2020. I thought David Johnson, it was just the 2020 year where he would get 20 touchdowns, all in the air, by the way. No, I'm just kidding, but I'm going to pump the brakes on that. But we know he's a great receiver, but he just hasn't been showcased that much in Houston. They got a bad offensive line. It's, when they get into the red zone, Watson likes to keep it. So he's on bye this week, but are you trying to target him in trades or actually sell him? Are you getting anywhere close to him?
Yeah, so I'm glad we're bringing this up because we talked about Antonio Gibson earlier, now David Johnson, and I think targeting a guy during a bye week is one of the best times to get him. Guys are trying to fill their rosters out, so I'm definitely going after him right now. It seems like the only people that know David Johnson's value are the ones that already have him. So good luck trying to get him away from somebody in your league. He doesn't have that crazy burst that we saw in his 2016 campaign, but in his later years, he's turning into this game script proof and consistent player in fantasy. He's the type of player that I love having in my flex option. Right now, he's got 12.2 half PPR points per game, and that's not eye-popping, but outside of Week 2's beatdown in Baltimore, Johnson hasn't put up less than 10.2 points per game in a single week. So when the Texans are up, Johnson gets the early down carries. When they're down, he gets going in the passing game and the draw game. He's seen 78% or more of his team snaps in all but one game this season. And, similar to how Drake pushed him into irrelevance last year, I'm slightly worried about Duke Johnson. But the Texans' new coaching staff, they seem really committed to getting David Johnson the rock. He's seen an uptick in carries and receptions in each game since Romeo Crennel took over. So I'm definitely targeting him in a few leagues. And as a matter of fact, I just got David Johnson and Terry McLaurin for Zeke in one of my PPR leagues.
Yeah, Crennel loves to run, man. He's a running type coach. And honestly, I'm not a David Johnson fan. It kind of makes me cringe a little bit. But yeah, I think it's – oh, God, I don't even know if I can say it. Anyways, real quick, before I end up saying it out loud, I do want to give a shout-out to Cody, of course, and I do want to give a shout-out to Scott. Scott over there with numbers. I was not on Lockett last week. I thought the Byron Murphy was going to shut him out, and that did not happen. He actually had 3 touchdowns, and Scott crushed it in DFS. It's at Nibble W Numbers. Scott's absolutely insane when it comes to DFS. Love that guy. But yeah, he not only called Lockett, he also called Harrison Bryant. That's impressive.
Wow, that is impressive.
That's impressive. So big shout out to Scott, of course, and shout out to you, Cody, for tuning into this episode. Now, Juan, what do you think about David Johnson?
I feel similar to Dave in that I love him. And like you said, if he's my third my third running back or my flex, I absolutely love it. So if I'm on a contending team, I definitely want him. 3.9 yards per carry doesn't scream league winner, but it is the 3rd highest total of his career. He's a few years removed from being that league winner, but this recent trade, what I really like is the recent trade rumors. Will Fuller and Randall Cobb are both reportedly on the out or possibly being shopped to other teams. If that happens, if either one of them leaves, that puts him right back in the RB2 range. He's currently 12th among running backs in receiving yards with 161 and 24th in receptions with 16 on 3.4 targets a game. Now, that's lower than what we expected, Chase. Like you said in the beginning, we wanted him to be more involved in the passing game. But if either one of those guys go, he could be right back there, and you can get him on the cheap right now. So I love David Johnson. I love the floor.
What would it take to get David Johnson? Would you do Will Fuller for David Johnson straight up?
Depending on my roster construction, I think I would. To give me a good floor going forward, I think I might. If I had 4 receivers and I can get rid of them to get a running back, which are so scarce, yeah, I probably would.
Yeah, any wide receiver in that 20 to 30 range, I'd be more than happy to ship them off.
Will Fuller's wide receiver 6 in non-PPR and 12 in PPR.
Wow.
Yeah,
I did not realize. I knew he was having a big year, but I didn't realize it was that big. That's crazy.
Yep, at least
I just don't trust that going. I don't trust that going forward, though. That's my fear with Fuller. Sell him while you can, sell him while he's high, sell him before anything happens and he gets traded to a team you don't love his situation, or he God forbid gets injured again, which has happened to him tons in his career.
Well, that's kind of how I feel about David Johnson as well. But yeah, I mean, Will Fuller is definitely a sell high candidate, but I don't think people realize how much of a high he is right now. So that's kind of what I wanted to ask, just off the cuff, to see if you guys even realized it. So it's something that's definitely hidden. Something that's definitely hidden right now. So speaking of David Johnson, right, who we just brought up, his former team is coming off of a huge primetime win. They beat the Seattle Seahawks, and it was amazing. DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk combined for 15 catches, 140 yards, 3 touchdowns in Seattle. It seems like every team that plays Seattle just puts up huge passing numbers. And it's week after week after week after week. But Seattle was supposed to have a better defense this year. I mean, not great by any stretch of the imagination, but it was supposed to be better than what they're performing. And the 49ers, right? They're kind of like a run-heavy, run-first type team. So do they switch up their play calling this week, like at all, and let Jimmy Garoppolo throw? Because, they're kind of banged up right now, especially at the wide receiver position. So what are you guys thinking?
I love this game, and I love these matchups in the NFC West. They're going to be putting up great games all year, but Shanahan does a great job of adapting his team and, adapting to and imposing his style and his will and running the ball and doing what he wants. But the holes in the defense that you mentioned, the Seahawks, are too much to ignore. Like, they're not just bad, and we can't just use superlatives like if they had Jamal Adams. Like, you have to actually look at the numbers. And if you're giving up 33.2 fantasy points to quarterback, that's the most in the NFL. So it's no coincidence that the wide receivers that face the Seahawks have scored 60.2 fantasy points per game. That's 12 more than the second worst team. So each of their corners allows 12.2 points per game to wideouts or more. Quentin Dunbar is getting burned for 15 yards per reception and giving up 12.7 points a game. Shaquille Griffin, who's injured and may or may not play, he's actually the one who's been victimized the most, even though he's the most common name. He's given up 18.6.
I thought Flowers was giving up the most, no?
No, Flowers is actually giving up the highest quarterback rating at a 124.7 for guys that line up in the slot. So in this game, whether it's Kendrick Bourne or Brandon Ayuk, either one of them should hit the century mark. And with the Seahawks giving up 11 touchdowns in 6 games, it stands to figure that 2 touchdowns will be scored by the wide receiver, and either one or both of them could find the end zone too.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think that, it's definitely a game that I'm going to be targeting. I just have to figure out exactly where, and that actually gives me a little bit of a lead on this for my DFS show tomorrow night. So appreciate that, Juan. What are you thinking, Dave?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, given the Seahawks' inability to stop the pass, you've got to assume that Shanahan's going to air it out a little bit more this week. And it's not that the Seahawks have been especially good at stopping the run either. They're allowing 4.1 yards per carry against them, and they have the 12th most points to fantasy running backs. So negative game scripts have forced their opponents' hands into airing the ball out a little bit more, which is causing them to give up that 369 passing yards per game. But that 369 passing yards, that's nearly 100 more than Jimmy G's season high right now. So if the 49ers are able to own the time of possession and grind out the clock and play the game the way that they want to play, they're not going to have any reason to air it out. But when you're put up against Russell Wilson, I'm betting on Wilson in this matchup, and I think that the Seahawks are going to kind of have their way in this game. And if the 49ers fall behind, I'm expecting Brandon Ayuk to just go off in this one. Deebo Samuel's still out, and that leaves him as the next man up. And, Deebo's played the last 4 weeks, but in that time, I have still compiled 13 receptions for 189 yards and 2 scores. So I think that, they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more just because Russell Wilson is going to put up points against them.
Yeah, man, I know for sure I'm going to be playing McKinnon. The Seahawks are actually pretty good overall when it comes to stopping the running back up the middle. Now, at first I thought that it was because of the fact that they pass so often, get up on teams, so teams aren't able to run. And that's part of the case, but they're still allowing less than 4 yards per carry to the running back position. Meanwhile, McKinnon is going to be used as a passing back. I do believe Shanahan when he said he was resting McKinnon, because anytime that McKinnon actually gets any kind of significant amount of work or significant workload, he ends up getting hurt. That's been his MO throughout his entire career. So I think that McKinnon could absolutely go off this week, and it could actually help out Jimmy Garoppolo's passing stats. And, you see 3-4 touchdowns at his price, and I guess that's more of a DFS thing. I'm trying to stay away from DFS. But, Jimmy Garoppolo for me is actually a start. I think he's going to finish as a top 15 quarterback, and I think he's actually safe. But that's just me.
I like it.
But he's actually ranked as 13th or 14th overall for consensus for ESPN rankings. So I'm not giving any kind of hot take. It's something as to where the community knows that the Seahawks can't defend the pass. So now when it comes to last week with 49ers, right? They were able to run buck wild, streaking style over the Patriots. We're going through the quads and the gymnasiums. Going streaking! Right? So mainly this is because of Cam Newton's 3 interceptions, negative games or positive game script, I should say. And honestly, it just looked like Cam was going to be he was just awful. He was not good last week. And, that's completely contrary to what we thought was going to happen with Cam, back earlier in the season. He struggled. He has struggled since coming back from COVID, right? 5 interceptions, 1 touchdown. That's brutal, right? That's over his last 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks, 5 interceptions. Is he droppable, or are you guys sticking with it? Because we know what our boy Taylor over there told us to do in the quick shots.
Yeah, short answer is yes, drop him. And the long answer for me is you should have dropped him a couple weeks ago. After 26 carries and 4 rushing touchdowns his first 2 weeks. And I thought we had Lamar Jackson 2.0 for this year. I expected Bill Belichick to lean heavily on the run game. I was shouting from the mountaintops, just go pick up Cam, spend all your fab on him. It's going to be worth it.
Oh, God.
Since then, 8 rushing attempts per game with 1 single rushing touchdown. His passing stats have been atrocious. 63.2% of his passes, an average of 139 yards per game, 6 interceptions, 1 touchdown. I mean, I don't know what more I got to say. Drop Cam. Next question.
Well, I do want to point out real quick in Taylor's breakdown of quick shots, he actually pointed out how in 17 or 16, he ended up having a year very similar to this. And he's almost exactly on par with his, I believe, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, passing yards, passing touchdowns, like for the year wise. And he had these games where it was just like a roller coaster, like it would be up one week and down the next. But overall, he ended up finishing up, I believe, as like a top 5 quarterback. I got to go back and watch the quick shots again. But yeah, he ended up finishing as like a top 5 or top 10 quarterback on the year overall. And I believe the Carolina Panthers went like 11-5 that year. So what are you thinking, Juan? Where are you going with this?
So I agree with both things, and it's easy to be able to do both. So it's not so much an indictment on Cam. It's more an indictment on the Patriots. So he can have those weeks where he has a bad week and then a good week, and it ends up like Taylor said in the quick shot, and he might end up finishing in the top 10, top 8, top 7. But week to week, you just can't deny it. And when everyone was screaming, get Cam, I didn't do it until I saw him go for 397 yards against the Seahawks. I'm like, okay, he's back. He made Edelman have his best game he ever had. He went over 160 yards receiving. So I thought that was the point. But then every week they change their game plan. And going forward, I just don't trust Josh McDaniels. And unless I'm in a position where I lost Dak, I lost Minshew, I lost Dalton, and I'm like in waiver purgatory, I just can't rely on Cam on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, what are you thinking? What are you thinking, Dave? Oh, wait, we already went with you. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to be a guy that's streaming, quarterbacks. Like, that's normally where I go. This year, I went a little bit differently because I had so many leagues. I was like, shit, I got to get a quarterback early so I don't have to, do research on the quarterback and be set for it on every single league that I'm in. But Cam's going to be a streaming option for me. And honestly, I don't know if he gets picked up by another team. I wouldn't really care because there are so many different quarterbacks this year that can give you those quarterback one numbers, that will be on the waiver wires, such as Teddy Bridgewater this week, Justin Herbert, if he's still out there. There's just certain guys. So for me, it's okay. I'm all right dropping Cam Newton because it's just so deep this year. So True. The Bills, right? They should be much easier, right? Opponent for those conference games, right? They get a little bit wonky. I've never said wonky before in my life. I just said wonky right now.
I love it.
We talked about it last week, but I think that it needs a little bit more talking about. We have Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs as must starts, right? But the rest of that offense has been like very underwhelming, especially Devin Singletary this past week. He's had some good weeks in there, by the way. He's had weeks where he puts up over 15 fantasy points. But if you have him on your team with seeing what Zach Moss did, what are you looking to do? Sell, hold, or maybe even drop? And I'm going to start out by saying that I predicted Zach Moss was going to end up having a better week overall than Singletary because it was going to be a blowout. It turns out that it wasn't a blowout, but Zach Moss still saw that work. So I'm interested to hear your all's thoughts.
Yeah, he's a hold for me. I mean, just given the offense and the currently low value, you don't want to trade him. But there's encouraging factors, and it's what you mentioned. Like, he has had those games, and his opportunities there. His 53% snap share last week was actually his lowest of the season. So he's currently 3rd in the NFL in routes run, which is encouraging because that 22.6 routes per game, he's going to be involved in the passing game. So at some point, that has to result in more production. And as Allen continues to progress and check the ball down a little more, and later in the year it gets cold up in Buffalo, like Singletary, with 4 games, he's had 4 games so far where he has 5 targets or more. And like I said, that's really encouraging going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a hold. I don't think you should be thinking about dropping Singletary. I have heard some people mentioning that, and his ownership levels actually went down a little bit. And I understand the frustration with his production, especially when you factor in the offseason hype and what it took to draft him. But he's still seeing double-digit touches in every single game this season. The really disappointing thing has been his lack of scoring opportunities. He's only logged 1 total touchdown this year, but he's 25th out of all running backs in scrimmage yards, and you've got to assume that he's going to start punching some touchdowns in eventually. So I wouldn't drop him or trade him away just yet. I think he's best kept on your team. But he's definitely something worth targeting in a trade if you can stash him on your bench or wait for him to turn the season around. You know, the usage is there. I think once he starts getting, if he had a few more touchdowns, people wouldn't be complaining about him at all.
You know, I'm going to sit there, and for me, I like Singletary. I don't love him, but I like him. I'm going to sit there and wait for him to have a boom week before I'd even consider moving him. And then once he does have that boom week, I try and package him with one of my other players to upgrade on a running back needy team because the running back is just so brittle so far this season. So I'm going to be the guy that's going to wait till he has a boom week, package him, and move up and grab a better asset at either running back or most likely going to be like a wide receiver or tight end. So that's where I'm looking with Singletary. Like, you know, there's going to be very few weeks where you know that you can start him. So he's getting to the point where he's almost a roster clog, but I don't want to move off him yet. You know, if something happens to Zach Moss again, gets injured, which Zach Moss has had those issues, you know, if we start to see, of course, Josh Allen struggle like he has been the few weeks, he could get that volume. So that's where I'm sitting with it. Now, people that are talking about dropping Singletary are absolutely nuts. They're smoking crack. But after, you know, Diggs, I want to talk about these wide receivers because Diggs is the only one, you know, really worth owning to an extent at, you know, on the surface, right? But John Brown, right? John Brown feels like he could be owned. And then meanwhile, we look at Cole Beasley, and Cole Beasley's actually outscoring him. 11.2 fantasy points to 7.7 in half-point PPR, that is. Are either one of these guys somebody that you feel safe starting week to week and you want to put on your roster? Or is this more of a roster clog where he might play 1 week in the entire season and it's a waste stashing somebody when you could have the upside of like maybe a Donovan Peoples-Jones?
Yeah, I mean, Cole Beasley is one of those guys that I've got him in a few leagues this year, and I have for years. He's one of those guys I always take at the end of my drafts. He just never gets the respect he deserves in fantasy circles. Right now, he's currently the wide receiver 22.5 PPR, and he's available in 47% of your leagues. So go out and get him because his 11 receptions and 112 yards last week are probably his ceiling. But he's posted double-digit scoring efforts in 4 of 7 games already this year. Like we talked about David Johnson earlier, you know, he's not sexy by any means, but he's a solid weekly flex play. And Cole Beasley is that guy for wide receivers. So the craziest thing about his ranking right now as a wide receiver 22, he's only scored twice this year. So it's not like he's inflating his fantasy output with a bunch of touchdowns that are going to come back down to earth. He's producing weekly with high volume and a healthy 4.7 yards after the catch, which is the 8th most for wide receivers with at least 35 receptions.
Yeah, it's difficult for me with Beasley because I feel like it's completely like it's not even matchup dependent. It's just, you know, like where is Josh Allen going to go? What do you think, Juan? What do you think?
I'm thinking Beasley's the safer pick because of everything Dave mentioned. Like his floor is perfectly solid, and it feels like Josh Allen loves him and he's going after him. But something about the deep threat of John Brown just makes me, you know, like 2 touchdowns, you expect that positive touchdown regression. He only has 2 touchdowns so far as well, just like Beasley. And he gets the benefit of having Diggs now on the other side, and he hasn't been healthy. And now that he's finally going to be back and he's going to be able to stretch the field after the game Ayuk had last week against the Patriots, I feel like there's a chance that John Brown comes back and they can start hitting those home runs that they were hitting last year.
Yeah, I really thought that John Brown was actually going to have a better year than what he did last year, because not because of volume, but because of efficiency metrics. And he's just been hurt, man. He's been dealing with knee injuries the entire time. So, I mean, you know, just sitting there and looking at it overall with the schedule remaining, they face New England, who, by the way, struggles with deeper targets with speed guys. Seattle, who we already know he could absolutely smash with, right? I'm going to trust John Brown a little bit more than Cole Beasley in this one. Arizona, who he'll be faced up against the guy on the left. Tim, was it Patrick?
Kirkpatrick.
Kirkpatrick.
Who just got torched by Lockett.
Yeah, historically torched.
So that could also be Diggs, but I'm expecting that to be actually John Brown. And then the Chargers are a tough matchup. San Francisco can struggle with deep guys, but overall they're a tough matchup. Pittsburgh, who struggled up against Slayton, other speed guys as well. And then, of course, you have Denver, who's kind of all over the place, and then the fantasy championships up against New England again. So I don't know, man. I think I'm leaning John Brown in this one for the upside. Cole Beasley's great, but I feel like there's just more league winning potential coming from John Brown than you see from Cole Beasley. But I can understand completely with Cole Beasley. I can understand it completely.
It's the safer play and it's the floor. And you mentioned those teams, the Arizona Cardinals. Patrick Peterson took away the number 1 option. Casey Hayward is going to take away your number one option, and that's Diggs all day. Peterson's back to where he can hold DK down, and then Lockett's the one that goes off against Kirkpatrick. Those are plus matchups that you're talking about, and I like boomer bust players anyway. I don't necessarily need all that floor. I like to go for the home run, so John Brown's the home run play.
All right, so let's go ahead and bounce over to, what happened with Beasley, right? And the Jets. The Jets are absolutely terrible. Beasley was going to pop off. That was already going to be a thing. And honestly, I can't say that it was exactly surprising, but it definitely exceeded expectations. So now the Jets get to face off against Kansas City, right? A team that couldn't stop the run at all last year. They've polished up their run defense a bit this season, but they're still giving up the 19th most points to running backs in fantasy. Now that you're dying, not that you're dying to start either, right? But is Frank Gore or LaMichael Pirine the better play this week? The tough questions hit. Go.
This one is so ugly that I don't want to touch it, man. I'm a perennial Jets hater, and I don't want to touch this one because there's no ceiling for Frank Gore. There's no ceiling. So obviously the play you want to do is you want to try to take your chances with LaMichael Pirine because, like you said, 19th. The only way to beat them is to try to grind out the clock and keep it close, and it's a 19.5-point spread. So you're already playing uphill, and I got to start
crazy,
Pirine.
by the way.
It's amazing, right? And it's a professional game. This isn't college.
It happened last year twice where it got above 20. I don't remember which team it was. Might have been the Jets. It probably was the Jets because the Sam Darnold mono time might have been when it happened.
Maybe.
And so, it was 17 points and 18 points and 23 and then 24, 25 points after that. The last one was the second highest of all time or close to it. Maybe both of them broke the record for all time. But anyways, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no interruption. It's just that there's really nothing for LaMichael Pirine to show you upside. Even in college, he had 30 total touchdowns in 4 years. He never saw more than 11 touchdowns in a single season. So I just don't see where the upside lies in this game at all.
And see, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, Juan. I really like LaMichael Pirine this week. I've been saying it for a couple weeks now, ever since Bell got shipped out.
You've been talking about LaMichael Pirine a lot. You did a quick shot on him.
I did. I'm a big fan of this guy. So last week, they split carries 11-11, but Pirine got the goal line touches. Andy hauled in a couple of catches, and I expect that to continue, that trend just every week going forward. Something that really shocked me was how the snap counts were divided last week. Pirine saw 75% of the team snaps compared to Gore, who just saw 28%. So this was 1 week after Pirine set his career high with 58%. So he's trending in the right direction. He's working
really
his way.
Funny, actually, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, but it's really funny that all of a sudden Le'Veon Bell leaves town and now Pirine is dominating snaps over Frank Gore. Frank Gore was unbelievable. Was a thorn to the side for Le'Veon Bell, and now he's not even a problem for LaMichael Pirine.
You know what? Like we said last week, nobody can even try to figure out the mind of Adam Gase. Nobody knows what's going on there. But Gore, he's got notoriously bad hands, and Pirine has been lending some help in the passing game. So if this game script goes how I expect it to, Pirine could easily have this breakout week. I don't think he's going to see 25 carries or anything like that, but he's going to get some passing downs. And if Jameson Crowder's out, then I think the sky's the limit for Pirine. I think he could have a huge week this week in the passing game. They're going to be playing from behind early, and he's a guy that they turn to when they are on those passing downs. So I really like Pirine this week.
Stop for me. What do you think, Juan? Or wait, you already went.
Yeah, I already went.
Sorry, I keep on getting caught up.
That's enough Pirine talk.
I'm getting caught up in the moment.
Enough Pirine talk.
Yeah, that's all I can handle. That's all I can handle. That's all I can stomach. All right. So we just talked about how the Jets prior to last week have been pretty good overall at shutting down slot receivers to an extent. Kind of it's kind of iffy with that. It just depends on who they're facing overall. But either way, let's flip to another team in this matchup. Tyreek Hill over there is leading the team in snaps out of the slot, of course. It's kind of all over the place. Mecole Hardman is right around 28% or so. It's kind of up in there. I'll let you guys talk about it. But yeah, Sammy Watkins, right? And Mecole Hardman are number 2 and number 3 for the slot snap counts overall. And that includes volume. They're both available in over half the leagues right now. Are they good streaming options this week against the Jags? Or I'm sorry, against the Jets. Are you guys fading them?
I think Watkins, he's technically still tagged as questionable. He missed yesterday's practice, but I think he might be able to suit up this week. But like we discussed last week, this team is really, really hard to predict once you get past Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. You got Watkins, Hardman, Robinson, even Pringle has had some games. So who knows who's going to get the touches in any given week. Watkins, though, he suited up for 5 games and was held to 2 or less catches in 2 of them. Hardman has played in 7 games and was held to 2 or less catches in 5 of them. So they both have no floor whatsoever. I mean, you don't know what you're getting with these guys. So if you're looking to stream a wide receiver this week, there's guys out there that I think are a little bit safer. We already talked about Cole Beasley. You've also got guys like Russell Gage and Keelan Cole that just offer a much safer floor, in my opinion. So, of course, Hardman could go off for 3 touchdowns this week, and I could have egg all over my face. But I think the smart play as a streaming option is somebody with a safer floor.
I'm actually a huge fan of Robinson this week personally. But go ahead, Juan. Tell me what you got.
Yeah, that's like Dave said, it's really hard to predict which one of those wide receivers is going to emerge as the lead in targets. But if you're talking about the slot, and you saw Poole get torched last week, who we thought was doing really well against slot, wide receivers, and Cole Beasley lit him up for the 11 catches and over 100 yards. This week, he's going to have either, Tyreek Hill or Miko or, Sammy Watkins in that slot. He only runs a 4.55, and all of those guys are 4.3 speed guys. So if there's going to be a shot, you could end up with a little egg on your face in the form of Mecole Hardman. I don't think Watkins is going to get enough usage in this game. Like you said, he's only had 2 catches in the games that he suited up. Like he's not a focal point of the offense. Robinson, maybe in a late game, you sub out Mahomes after halftime and it's a blowout. But the one guy in the entire offense who actually might line up in the slot quite a bit is Le'Veon Bell. They've been talking about it. Listen, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes both this week were talking about how great he is in the slot and out wide. And he might be trying to show Adam Gase why in 264 carries, he had 1 16-yard carry for the Jets, and he had 2 last week. So including his first one. So I think they might try to, this is a Le'Veon Bell, beat them up, and he might actually be the guy that leads out of the slot.
Yeah, there's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of turmoil going over there on defense for the Jets with Quinnen Williams, potentially on the trade block, and all this other mess going on. Man, the Jets are a mess as a whole.
McDougal may not play the free safety too.
Yeah, it's going to be a mess over there. It's going to be an absolute blowout. We'll see if it gets up to 20 points. That's going to be, it's going to be a dirty game. I don't know if the Chiefs need to get that much, but I don't think the Chiefs either. I don't think they take their foot off the gas. So. We got to see where this one goes, of course. I love that Le'Veon Bell call overall. So
I like that.
Yeah, it's something that Mike and I talked about on yesterday's podcast with Nate Hamilton on from Dominate. So, yeah, it's something where we believe that Le'Veon Bell is going to smash faces this week. So the Broncos, though, right? Going back to what happened with Hardman. They kept Hardman, the Broncos, that is, out of the end zone last week. Now the Broncos get to play the Chargers on Saturday afternoon. Actually, that's right. They get the Chargers on Saturday afternoon. Dave, you call Justin Herbert being an absolute sexy breakout beast, right? And he was almost quarterback 1. Barely missed it. Is he going to repeat his huge game this week?
Absolutely. I think Herbert is much more than a flash in the pan. His lowest passing total in the game so far this year is 264 yards. And in that game, he peppered in 4 touchdowns to make up for it. I mean, he's tossed 290 yards or more in every other game this season. And his touchdown to interception ratio right now is 12-3. So Denver's pretty middle of the road in their pass defense this year. They're giving up the 13th most points to fantasy quarterbacks. But Herbert is a smash play every single week until he proves otherwise. He's got a ton of talent. He's got a great supporting cast. And just keep him locked in as a QB1 until he starts trending downwards.
So our boy Troy King over there actually posted a question back for the Twitter followers, right? And he wanted to know Herbert or Teddy Bridgewater up against Atlanta. What are you guys thinking?
Broncos are middle of the road defensively, like you said. And I don't know. I think I'm going to go Teddy Bridgewater against Atlanta. Yeah, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson have been coming alive. And I think I'm going to go Teddy Bridgewater on a Thursday night against the Atlanta defense.
I had Teddy at first, but I think I'm leaning Herbert now. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I think Herbert he's just so much better than Teddy. I think you're getting too cute if you start chasing the matchup on this one. Atlanta's been terrible against the pass, but if I got the choice between the two, I'm taking the stud in Herbert.
All right, so Juan, what's your take on Herbert?
I love everything that Dave said about Herbert right now, and he's on pace to break the 44,374 yards rookie passing record from Andrew Luck. He's also on pace to break the 27 touchdown record held by Baker Mayfield. So he's on pace to be the greatest rookie quarterback we've seen, and Burrow's right behind him and clipping his heels. But what I really like about Herbert is that now he's creating plays, and he had 9 carries for 66 yards last week. So like if you're adding legs to it, like that elevates quarterbacks to a whole nother level, and it makes it really easy for a guy that's like fringe QB1 to take that next climb up to top 5 QB, and he's putting up a historic season. So love Herbert.
All right, so Herbert's gonna smash this week. We got that. What's up, Cooter Doodle? By the way, love saying that name. Anytime I get a chance to say Cooter Doodle on a microphone, I'm saying it. So, anyways, Herbert smash. Fair enough. Outside of Keenan Allen, though, right? He was seeing an insane 10.5 targets per game. That's nuts. 10.5 targets per game. Who is the best pass catching option for this matchup outside of course, Keenan
Allen? Believe it or not, I'm gonna say it's Hunter Henry.
Ooh. Okay, let's go. Let's hear it.
Mike Williams has been a little bit inconsistent, and he either gets the targets or he doesn't. But last game he had 2, I believe, targets. So this week, Hunter Henry is going to go up against the Broncos, and like you said, they're middle of the pack. Their linebacking core is nothing to write home about, and Justin Reed has been getting torched as a safety if he comes down in coverage against Hunter Henry. So I like Hunter Henry to be that outlet, that release, and Herbert's ball is pretty, but it's not prettier than when he's throwing it down the seam. And Hunter Henry's just missed a couple of those, and I think it's Hunter Henry type of game this week.
God, man, this is tough for me because Hunter Henry just has a tendency to let people down when it's the best chance to do it. And then on the other,
so does Mike Williams.
Other side of things, I was just about to say, so does Mike Williams, right? It's going to be Joe Reed, baby. It's going to be Joe Reed. Let's go.
I could see it. I mean, if you're looking
a healthy scratch.
If you're looking to get let down, let me tell you all about Mike Williams. I mean,
all right, let's see it. Come on.
I'm gonna end up losing followers, man, because I've been riding this guy's jock for years, and he just keeps blowing up in my face week after week. He did nothing last week. He had 1 of 3 targets, only pulled in 4 yards. But last season, he was good against Denver. Over 2 games, he saw 20 targets, pulled in 11 receptions, and had 190 yards. So I'm expecting something similar this week. He's only cracked 100 yards once so far this year, but I believe that his talent, Herbert's deep ball, and his history against Denver are just a match made in heaven. So it might take some time for him to develop that chemistry because he is such a downfield threat. But don't drop Williams yet. Don't freak out. And I think if you're going to start him, this is the week to do it. You know, he's got proven success against Denver.
Yeah, Denver, guys. Let's talk about Denver because you guys both thought that Tim Patrick, right, was going to smash last week, and he ended up coming up with 3 catches for 44 yards. That's what I call a smash, right? Do you guys – he put his gooey egg solution all over y'all's face. Do y'all expect him to turn it around this week against the Chargers, or are you expecting, a different player to step up for Denver?
I'd like to see the involvement of Noah Fant increase. I'd like to see him come back a little bit more and get more usage. But this game scares me because it depends on who's lining up with Casey Hayward. Like whoever gets the Casey Hayward treatment, you could see another stat line similar to that if it's Patrick. And Judy's been lining up in the slot quite a bit lately. So, I'm hoping, again, I'm going with the tight ends, and I'm hoping that Noah Fant ends up having himself a game.
Have you guys seen these receptions of these targets and the snap count from Aquabunum?
Yeah,
Alberto, as most people say it.
Alberto. Mm-hmm.
6 targets and 7 targets after the bye week, following 4 games where he did not play. He's a healthy scratch, I believe. Oh, I'm hitting my mic. No, so 6 targets and 7 targets over the past 2 weeks. This past week, he caught all 7 for 60 yards up against the Kansas City Chiefs. So Daniel Sorensen's been pretty good overall at keeping these guys, at a maximum amount of catches, and he caught all 7 of them. What do you guys think about Alberto? Like, could he actually be a thing? Dave, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think whoever plays tight end this week is going to end up being the big play. You already mentioned it. I don't have too much more to say than what Juan already said. I mean, somebody's got to step up with Courtland Sutton going down. And I'm staying away from Patrick this week because the Chargers, they're the 10th toughest matchup for opposing wide receivers. You've got Casey Hayward, who's a shutdown, but then you got Desmond King on the other side, and they're both just locking down receivers and making it a nightmare for quarterbacks. But the Chargers have been susceptible to opposing tight ends, giving up the 4th most fantasy points in the league. So Noah Fant is the guy I'm really excited to see this week. Health has obviously been an issue in keeping him off the field, but when he's been healthy, he hasn't seen any fewer than 5 targets in a game, and he can beat those linebackers with the speed down the seam. So he should lead the team in receptions and yards, and a touchdown would just be the cherry on top. But if he's unable to play, yeah, I'm smashing Alberto too. I'm not even trying to say the last name.
Chase, you might know this better than me, Chase, but I got a question for you real quick.
Let's go.
Alberto and Drew Lock together in college, no?
Yes. The year before he came out graduating, he had like something like 800 yards for a tight end, which in college is very impressive. And then he
led the team in targets too.
Yeah, and then he regressed in after Drew Lock left. So it's definitely a connection that they could have moving forward, especially with how teams are going to 12 personnel a lot more often. Yeah. So it's something where Alberto could absolutely be a thing, while Noah Fant's a thing as well, especially with Cortland Sutton being out. So, guys, I'm going to go ahead, right? And, we're kind of running a little bit behind. I got stuff to do for my DFS guys and for everybody on Patreon. By the way, if you guys want to play DFS, you guys get 3 of my lineups on each slate: the Thursday, the Sunday slate, and the Monday slate. You guys get 3 different lineups that I play. You guys can end up playing those as you want, or, altering pieces. It's up to you guys. Patreon.com/FantasyIntervention. It's $2. It's $2 a month, like 50 cents a week, guys. Like, just go join Patreon, go support the show, even if you don't play DFS. Anyways, what we're going to do moving forward is we're going to go to one of you guys or the other. All right. So whoever wants to take each one, so that way we can get out of here and I can throw these lineups in for the guys that play DFS and check this injury report. So the Chargers defense, right? They look solid to start at the season. Once again, just like the Chargers always do, the injuries are just piling up. They gave up 119 rushing yards to James Robinson last week, right? He's currently RB3 in half-point PPR. I think he's second in full-point PPR. But anyways, Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings still have him as the RB11 for the rest of the season. That doesn't make any sense to me. Does that seem appropriate, or should he be ranked higher? He's getting all the work, isn't he? Like, who wants to take this one?
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I'll take it. So I think he needs to be ranked much higher than that, but I understand why he's also ranked that low at the same time. The Jaguars' offense is terrible. He was undrafted out of a small school, which Illinois State University represent. A lot of my very good friends went there, but he's almost assuredly going to outperform his rest of season rankings. Right now, he's ranked below guys like Josh Jacobs, James Conner, Kareem Hunt, Jonathan Taylor. But if I was offered any of those guys, or if I was offered to trade away any of those guys and get James Robinson, I'd smash accept for it. So you can even make the case for him over Zeke right now with the way that he's been performing this year. As for value against wide receivers, I think you got to draw the line with Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins, and that's pretty much it. If you're not getting a top 5 running back or a top 2 wide receiver for him, don't do it. People are going to try to make you a bunch of lowball offers because he was undrafted, but just don't do it. James Conner was consistently ranked outside the top 15 in 2018 when he had his big breakout season and finished the year as the RB7. And a lot of people traded him away, thought they were selling high, and it bit him in the ass. So if you've got James Robinson on your team, congratulations. He's a league winner. Don't trade him.
I like it. Juan, do you have anything like in particular to add, or are you on the same page?
I'm on the same page.
Okay, 100%. Cool. All right, so before last week, right, Robinson's biggest game was up against the Titans. And the Titans, they've got the Bengals this week. The Titans have not been great up against the run this year. They've actually been pretty terrible overall and given up the 20th most points to opposing running backs. Mixon might not be able to suit up. So, first off, do you guys think he's suiting up? Second off, if he can't suit up, where are you putting Giovanni Bernard?
I don't think he plays. To tell you the truth, I think they're going to err on the side of caution, and they're going to hold him back a little bit this week and run with Giovanni Bernard. And Giovanni Bernard in 5 of 6 games has at least 3 catches already. That was with or without Joe Mixon. So I think this is one of those games where the Titans are going to have the lead and Burrow's going to have to try to throw for 400 yards again. And you'll see another game where Bernard gets 5-6 catches easily. And that probably puts him in the top 30 easily and maybe even around 20 if he plays.
You got anything to add for that, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I've got him as my 20th right now, and that's exactly where I think he belongs. He could end up having a huge week, but I'm not getting too excited about him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you 100%. As for the Titans, though, looked like Jonnu Smith is going to have a huge breakout season after 5 touchdowns in his first 4 games, but he's only snagged 2 catches in his last 2 games. Honestly, like, I believe it's because of Taylor Lewin, because the Steelers, right? They blitz, I believe, more than any other team. They bring pressure, and they get the most amount of pressure when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback. Anyways, when they don't have Taylor Lewin over there on the left-hand side to block, they're going to have to bring other blockers in. So we saw Derrick Henry block a ton, which, we expect that from him. But also Jonnu Smith, right, was in there blocking as well on a large number. I believe like the percentage was the second highest percentage on the season-wise when it came to blocking versus running routes.
Oh, wow.
Anthony Fursker is not a blocking tight end. He can't block, but Jonnu Smith is more of like that guy that can catch passes and block, very similar to George Kittle. So with A.J. Brown back, right, Jonnu Smith seemed to be like in a touchdown or bust type territory, but I don't know if that's the case. I think we're more looking at Taylor Lewin. So what do you guys think about Jonnu Smith? Where are you going?
Well, as of right now, he's available in almost 10% of ESPN leagues. His ownership went down after this one catch week, dropped 6%. So he's available. And if he's out there, go ahead and grab him right now. AJ Brown.
Crazy.
Yeah, it blows my mind. And A.J. Brown, he's obviously the top dog on that offense, but he was around last year, and Jonnu still produced. So the touchdown rate this year has been absolutely insane. I don't expect that trend to really continue. But in 2019, Jonnu saw 44 total targets. Now we're 6 games into the season, and he's already had 33 balls tossed his way. The coaching staff said they wanted to get Smith involved this year, and they're standing true to it. So if you're lucky enough to be in one of those leagues where somebody dropped him, snag him up ASAP. Tight ends have been a dumpster fire this year, and he's one of the few that carries that elite upside. So if you're thinking about dropping Jonnu Smith, don't do it. It's not worth it. 2 bad games aren't enough to drop an elite player like that.
No, and I like his schedule coming up too. Juan, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, real quick. He was tight end 2 until he got injured. So he was putting up the numbers. And there's a crazy split. I'm glad you mentioned Taylor Lewan because a lot of people don't talk about offensive linemen. But last year, that team was completely different when he was suspended for the first 4 games. And then when he came back, everybody took off and their production went through the roof. Mariota was garbage, but Tannehill was great. There's no coincidence that an all-pro left tackle like Taylor Lewan makes a difference.
Hey, I know we're kind of in a rush to end this episode, but holy shit.
I'm sorry. I talk really fast when I get excited. Listen, offensive linemen and defensive linemen do what PFF does for you, for me. Like, yep. I love that.
So you got to hop on a show with Dynasty Price and I one time because we actually dissect the blocking schemes and everything. I'm huge on offensive line. So the Steelers, right? They've been stellar up against the tight end. We already know that. With the Steelers playing against the Ravens this week, are you actually starting Mark Andrews? Like, is he a must start even with this matchup, or is the steel curtain going to hold him down?
Go for it, Juan.
Yeah, man. Listen, they've been making people go away. They've been
making people go away.
They make tight ends disappear, and you expect Ertz to have a game, and you expect guys that are going up against the Steelers and Jonnu to have a game, and they just don't. They either put Edmonds on you to Terrell Edmonds, or they bring down Fitzpatrick to play the robber. And until they lost Bush, they were using him, but Vince Williams can cover too. So I'm avoiding those tight ends if I can. You can't replace a Mark Andrews. They're coming off a bye. I'm sure that John Harbaugh came up with a scheme and Greg Norman in that offense, or Roman in that offense, to be able to get him together and to get him open and to scheme him open. But I can't trust it if I have another option. If I can find something else to play instead of Mark Andrews, I think I would.
I'm going to go ahead and say this real quick. I'm going to interject. Mark Andrews for me is actually not a play this week. The Steelers actually run like this V formation for the majority of the time, where they drop back their corners and they create like a V in the middle of the field with their defense. That ends up forcing quarterbacks to have to try and pass to the numbers and beat them to the numbers because they have a safety that sits in the middle, so you can't pass between the V, and it blocks off a lot of the passing lanes. So with that being said, you have to hit guys on the outside. They take away the tight end. That's how they take away the tight end, actually, is by forcing that V. And they either force you to take guys that are running like slot routes to the outside or flares up with the running back position, or hit the guys deep in one-on-one coverage. Lamar Jackson can't do that. He's proven he hasn't been able to do that. So honestly, like the wide receivers in this matchup for me are sit in most cases. Dave, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I agree. I mean, if you've got I'm fading Mark Andrews heavy this week.
All right, so Lamar Jackson. This is what we're talking about, right? We all expected regression after his insane 2019 season, but the regression, it's been a lot more than what everybody expected outside of myself. So we sit there, we've seen top end quarterbacks like this always regress because teams have a whole entire offseason in order to study film and prepare for it. So the only number, right, that's trended in a positive way for Jackson this year are his interceptions per game. That is likely due to his attempts, being down by almost 10 attempts per game, which is absolutely insane to me. Most people that have him or spend a first on him through like a third round pick somewhere in that range, are they freaking out? Like, is Lamar Jackson a play for the rest of the season? Is he in and out? And we'll end it on that question.
Yeah, I'll start off with this one because I own Lamar Jackson in about 50% of my leagues, and I'm definitely starting to freak out a little bit. I thought that I was getting a QB1/RB1 that I could plug into my QB slot. He won a couple championships for me last year, and I thought he was going to repeat it this year. But I ignored all of that offseason chatter about him running less, and I wish I had listened. His attempts per game have plummeted. His passing accuracy is down. The bad thing, I guess you can say, is that the Ravens are still winning, so there's no reason for them to change up their game plan. He saw 11.7 rushing attempts per game last year and averaged 80.4 yards per game. Now that's down to 8.3 rushing attempts per game and 57.4 yards. He's also only got 2 touchdowns on the year compared to 7 last year. So when you average all that together, you're looking at nearly 5 points per game less than last year. And that's not even talking about his regression as a passer. His 9% touchdown rate is down to 6.2%, which was a way bigger drop than I expected. And another scary thing is his sack rate. Last year, he was sacked 23 times over 15 games. Now we're 6 games into the season, and he's already been sacked 15 times. So teams are plugging a spy on him, and it's just making it really hard and keeping his rushing ceiling down. So yeah, I'm definitely freaking out a little bit as a Lamar Jackson fan and owner.
You actually sounded so genuine on that. Like, I'm freaking out. It's not even like I'm freaking out, man. It was like, dude, like I'm actually freaking out about this right now. Like,
I got a lot of money tied up in fantasy football and a lot of shares in Lamar Jackson.
Oh man, Lamar Jackson was tough, man. Juan, you want to add to that real quick?
Yeah, I'll add a couple personal notes. One, the chef who just comments at FF Chef, he just traded away in redraft Lamar Jackson for Justin Herbert like 3 weeks ago. He was ahead of the game. He panicked 3 weeks ago and was like, I'm jumping ship. And he actually got Justin Herbert, so he'd rather go with him down the stretch. He only has 1 game this year, Lamar Jackson, where he's thrown over 200 yards. And that was the first game of the season. He hasn't done that since. I don't believe in the pass catchers on that offense. They are a run-heavy team. He may give you 1 or 2 games going forward down the stretch, but it's not going to be this week against Pittsburgh, and he's going to have some tough matchups down the road too. So I'm also fading Lamar Jackson, but I didn't take him anywhere this year either. So
lucky, yeah. I told you guys, like I had so many fantasy teams, right? Like I had invested in the running back or the quarterback a little bit earlier than normal, but I was more around like the Dak Prescott, which sucks. Obviously, the Josh Allen, range of guys. I don't invest anything before like the 4th, 5th round in quarterback, but I'll take a shot on like a Kyler Murray type guy who, by the way, everybody's talking about MVPs. So I want to bring this up. You guys weren't prepared for this. I want to bring this up as the last question to close out the night. So I'm going to talk about Kyler Murray. Before I do, if you guys want to go check out our content, I'm going to put the banner down at the bottom, linktr.ee/fantasyintervention. Once again, that's linktr.ee/fantasyintervention. Join our circle underscore after that. Join our circle on Twitter. Go check us out, guys. We're exploding. Things are happening right now. We're getting a clothing line put up for us. We're going to be hotter than P. Diddy's and Jay-Z's clothing lines ever were. What is it? Tom Brady's 12. We're going to be hotter than that. So make sure you guys go check us out over there. I'm halfway kidding. No, but anyways, guys, go ahead, Dave. Tell everybody where to find you.
You can find me, like I mentioned, at the pregamehq.com. You could also find me on Fantasy Pros on their news correspondence desk for NFL, MLB, and NBA. You can find me at joinourcircle_, and then you can find my personal account at DKLUGE90, DKluge90.
All right, Juan.
I'm Juan Carlos Pena, and you can find me at FF Juan of a Kind, and www.thetiltisreal.com is where you can find some of my articles. And going forward, at joinourcircle_ is where you're going to be finding all of our content. Wednesday nights, we put out the weekly 6-pack with the chef and Corey. Shout out to Chef and Corey. And we're doing hot shots, and join our circle. Come on in, man.
Dude, come join our circle, guys. And by the way, did you just say www. Before you like
I said it real quick too, so you didn't even hear it. You barely heard me.
That was really quick, actually. It really was. Yeah. I only heard one W, but I kind of figured you put the rest of them. So anyways,
say W.
Kyler Murray, guys, is he an MVP candidate? Because I feel like he is. Like everybody's talking about Russell Wilson, of course, right? Everybody's talking about Tom Brady. Everybody's talking about Aaron Rodgers, but nobody said Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray is willing them to wins. Is he an MVP candidate moving forward?
I hope so, because I put $100 on it after week 1. Paying out $2,500, I'll take it.
No way.
Yep, it was plus
that's
2,500
awesome,
after week 1, so I'm
God.
hoping for it.
I
But
wish I had gambling here.
I also put $100 on Mitch Trubisky before the season started, so I want to
You're
take my
wild.
advice on who MVP is going to be.
Hey,
wild man.
2,500 is going to pay for both, so you're golden. But no, does he have a real shot though?
I think he does. Yeah, Juan, you can take it. Go into this one a little bit.
Listen, he has to have a shot. We were all talking about Josh Allen through the first 4 games, but in the last being an MVP and then he's fallen off a little bit, Kyler's going in the other direction. In the last 3 games, he has a 380 and a 360-yard performance. He's doing it with his legs. He's beating Russell Wilson. So if the defense keeps holding up, and you got to have a winning record to be MVP, but if they keep holding up and doing what they're doing and holding up their end, I think he's got a smash chance, especially now that Drake is out. They might actually throw it even more. So look for him to put a run of games together.
He does have a tough matchup moving forward, but it doesn't seem to affect him. So, for example, San Francisco's 7th ranked up against quarterback. He put up 30.6 points. Washington's 13th. He put up 37 points. Carolina's 5th. He put 26.5. Dallas is 15th, but Dallas is terrible. So it's just because of volume, being that reason. But moving forward, he has New England, who's 4th, the Rams, who's 6th, San Francisco, who's 7th, and the Rams, who's 6th again. Meanwhile, they do have the Giants and Philly and Seattle sprinkled in there. Buffalo's hit or miss. So it's very, very interesting here, where he is moving forward. But I think the key thing that you said was, he just beat Russell Wilson, who's supposed to be the MVP candidate, who threw an interception, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more about the late game and the late season type stuff. After week 4, week 5, those people that perform those first 4 or 5 weeks, they don't matter in the MVP voting. Those stats don't matter. It's all about that late season, type route. So I think that Kyler Murray, if he beats some of these better teams, if he beats Seattle again, right? If he beats the Rams, who have been great so far this year, they have to consider him, right?
Yeah,
he's for sure. He's in the running. And Russ threw 2 interceptions actually in that game because Peterson got him on that floater that he threw into the end zone too. It wasn't just the one that Buda Baker got.
That almost pick 6.
Yeah, and that almost pick 6 thanks to DK and the greatest play we've ever seen.
All right, guys. Thank you all for coming in here. Thank you guys for everybody that tuned in and commented. We really appreciate you guys. Make sure you all check us out. Of course, next week, Thursday night, 6 o'clock. And go check us out on Linktree, linktr.ee/FantasyIntervention, where you can find all of our platforms on everything that we do. Thank you guys for tuning in once again. And thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.